Hi everyone, I'm Maxine, a 37-year-old Black writer, essayist, and critical thinker based here in New York City, where I was born. I am really excited about exploring this space as an opportunity for me to talk about what I'm reading, what I'm writing, what I'm watching, and what I am thinking about. My introduction to the world of critical thinking and analysis started very early on. I've been passionate about essay writing in particular, and really the construction of theses that you could use to go on and research particular topics for at least 25 years now, to try to get some answers to questions that I had about whatever it is that I was reading or writing about in school. This continued into my adulthood, where I became very passionate about intertextuality in particular. I'm someone who is consistently thinking of books while I'm watching movies or television, and absolutely vice versa. I feel like I'm always good for either a book recommendation or a movie recommendation, largely because I'm thinking about the broader conversations that pieces of art are having with one another, even if there were no specific or known connections between them. I think art makes itself known to us, and it finds ways of delivering the messages that live within it. And so I want to use this space, as well as the writing that I've been doing on my website over the past few years, as an opportunity to talk through and think through what it is that I'm reading and why I think it's important for me right now to be enriching myself in this particular way. You're going to hear a lot about the importance of art from me, from this channel in general, from my essays as well, especially right now where we are fighting the good fight against generative AI and LLMs in particular, and their use within the humanities and the creative arts. I really want folks to see this space as one that will always care very deeply and most about human created art. This is something that I'm extremely passionate about as someone who creates art herself, but also defends art. And so I think it's really important that we think about the ways in which human beings have used art up until now and will continue to use art to get us out of these particular times. Specifically, when we find ourselves under fascist rule, under patriarchal rule, under white supremacist rule, under technocrat rule, we will need to use and depend on art in order to be able to express ourselves in the ways that feel like are being suppressed right now, but also to get us to a place that is beyond the wasteland that currently exists around us. And so the first book that I'll bring up today is the 2015 book from J.F. Martel, Reclaiming Art in the Age of Artifice. This one I think is extremely important, again, because of that focus on human-centered art. It's really an exploration of where we think art came from and why, all the way through to how we think of art versus artificial intelligence, and artifice in particular, which is the use of art in the service of someone, in the service of particular messaging that they want us to receive. So here within this book, a lot comes up in terms of imagination, in terms of play. Again, the mystery that surrounds art itself is part of why it's super important. So wanted to go through a few of these quotes for you, encouraging you to read it, but also to potentially use it in the way that I have, really thinking of this as armor that's helping me in the fight against generative AI. So we'll read a couple of quotes right now to help you get a sense of what the book itself is really talking about. All right, so far from distracting us from the strange and the uncanny in life, the astonishment evoked by great artistic works puts them square in our sights. The work demands that we feel and think the mystery of our passage through this body, on this earth and in this universe. We realize afterward that the world is not what we thought it was. Something hidden, impossible to communicate, though clearly expressed in the work, has risen into the light of awareness. and the share of the real to which we are privy is proportionately expanded. In the case of this book, the real is this piece of the universe that we don't necessarily know about, but that we can access through art, right? The power that art has to show us something that we've never seen before, experience something that we've never experienced before, and to expand our horizons. All right, so this is something else, art in and of itself, thinking of it as it having power that in and of itself it only has. This is something that only art can do. In art, even the most negative situations are recast in such a way that the beauty they hold can shine its own light. Transient feelings and impressions turn into entities that endure. Art is a kind of alchemy. It transforms its base materials into something entirely new. When I read it, I thought for the first time, and while I'm someone who has thought about writing books, but this one really made me feel like I could write a book, that I could really go out and write something, because this is how passionately I feel about art. And so I love that I have it to read and to be able to use again in that fight against generative AI. So before getting into the last quote that's going to connect us to James Baldwin's essay, I did want to talk about 2 films that are connected to this particular book that I would recommend from 2026. The first is The Christophers by Steven Soderbergh, written by Ed Solomon. Michaela Cole and Sir Ian McKellen put forth a really stunning set of performances that really make you think about, again, what is art doing? What is art for human beings specifically? And the second movie that I would recommend from this year that's a really great companion to this book is actually Toy Story 5. And Toy Story 5 has play at the center of the film itself. That one is written and directed by Andrew Stanton, who's a longtime storyteller within Pixar. Wrote Finding Nemo and WALL-E, among other films outside of Pixar, and play sitting at the center of the film. Again, don't want to give away any spoilers since it's still in theaters right now, and I encourage folks to check it out, but really thinking through what the purpose of play is and how it connects us to other human beings. Play is something, as mentioned, that's brought up in Martel's book, and that I care very deeply about, because play is the exercise in which we are using our imagination, and we are hopefully creating art that's a means of simply expressing, right? Not having to tell a particular set of messaging, right? Not having to deliver something specific to convince us to buy something, to convince us to even believe something. It's really pure expression. And so again, highly recommend the book. It's from 2015, but the introduction was added in 2025. Highly recommend. The second book I want to talk about is an essay by James Baldwin that was written in 1964. It's called Nothing Personal, and it comes in this lovely tiny book that I know I will be going back to again and again. And this is really Baldwin's musings on the American psychology in the height of the civil rights movement. If you've read Baldwin before, you know that his work is a blend of disillusionment and hope. He tells it like it is, and he also shares what's on his heart and mind. And so what comes up in this is a critique of commercialization, a critique of course, racism and capitalism that exists within American society, but also shares what he deeply hopes people will come to understand about the meaning of connection and being with human beings. Baldwin himself was in constant conversation with other artists, whether more adversarial conversations or ones that were friendly, thinking of his relationships with Maya Angelou and with Nikki Giovanni versus with Langston Hughes as an example, but he cared very deeply about the arts and contributed to broader thought that we have about them. This piece, he has many critiques on New York City, where he's from and where I'm from, and Harlem in particular, which is where I am. But again, he found it deeply important that artists be able to live the life in which they wanted to live, where the people can sing, the poet can live. And it is worth saying it the other way around too. where the poet can sing, the people can live. So thinking of the importance of expression, right? An artist being able to freely express themselves hopefully means that they live in a society that allows for that, and vice versa. An additional quote that I really loved from this is the idea of human beings being their own witnesses to their lives. And I can think about this as art being an expression, right? As an opportunity to be that witness, and you do that through the art that you create. But if one can reach down into oneself, into one's life, and find there some witness, however unexpected or ambivalent to one's reality, one will be enabled, though perhaps not very spiritedly, to face another day, right? The importance here of being one's own witness as part of keeping you alive, right? Feeding you in ways that help you want to keep going on. And I really do see art as being something that is this important, right? Martel says that art is expression, not communication. And here within his essay, Baldwin argues that the communication that we've developed in the 60s, right? This is 1964, is being used to reassure and not to express things in particular, right? He can see the bastardization of art, the tools being used by those in power to convince us of particular things versus expressing things, putting things out into the world in order to improve it and to expand it. So really love these two pieces. Can definitely see myself revisiting them, adding them to, what I think of as my personal canon of books that are really important to me, foundational in how I construct and think about the world. And so want to recommend both of these. You can find them wherever books are sold. I would always say please support your indie booksellers. There's a ton of them here in New York, as you can imagine. So I'm excited to continue growing my personal library. You can see some of the books on the side there. I have many, many, many others all over the place. So the first is Marshall Stannis, who does film reviews that I really enjoy. He recently did a film review for I Love Boosters that I really appreciated, since I Love Boosters is written and directed by Boots Riley, offers a fascinating commentary on capitalism, fashion, individual struggles versus collective struggles, and much, much more. I don't want to share too much to spoil anything, but highly recommend checking out the film and also checking out Marshall's review, which I will link in the description below. The second film that I'd recommend, and also creator that I'd recommend, is God Is, which also came out this year, written and directed by Alicia Harris, and it's a film adaptation of Harris's 2018 play by the same name. 2026 brings us another set of twins. This time it's girls who are on a revenge journey that is tasked to them by their mom. It is a great story, again, of revenge, of domestic violence, of toxic masculinity, and the impact that all of this can have on families and children in particular. Kaylani is one of my favorite video essayists, but also TV and film reviewers on YouTube. She has a really great review of Is God Is with fellow creator Jessica Bell, and I really enjoy this conversation because Alicia Harris is a Black woman, the twins in the film are Black women, and the two of them are also Black women, and so it's a great opportunity to hear from fellow women kind of thinking about the topic, what it means to discuss it right now, and why we need to keep the conversation going about domestic violence against women in particular. So hope that you all enjoyed all of the art that I shared today. I'm excited to be able to again use this space as an opportunity to talk through what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what I'm writing, and to have a broader conversation with you all. I know that the reason that I was drawn to reading and to writing since I was a young girl comes from a desire to express herself and to connect with other people, because that's what I love doing most. And so I hope that you all will like, subscribe, and leave some comments for me. Let's get this conversation started. Bye-bye.